Should you actually go out and adopt product-led growth? Or instead, should you maybe hire an inside sales team? Maybe the inside sales team actually needs to be a hybrid sales team. Or maybe you need to hire some really experienced enterprise AEs. Which one do you actually go with to drive the growth of your SaaS business? Well, it depends. It depends on what product you have, the type of product you have. It depends on your market, how they prefer to buy. It depends on some critical factors. And this is one of the tough decisions us founders have to make when we're deciding to deploy capital to actually grow our SaaS businesses. So in this episode, I'm gonna walk you through this framework that I have, this framework that I love, that I learned the hard way, on how you can go about picking the right type of go-to-market strategy that fits your product and your market that you're operating in. Intro. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Unstoppable. I'm TK, and on this channel, I help SaaS founders like you grow your SaaS businesses faster with an unstoppable strategy. If you are new to this channel, welcome. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and that bell icon. That way you'll get notified every single time I drop an episode like this with actionable strategies to grow your SaaS business with the TK energy. Now, if you're already part of my SaaS go-to-market coaching program, if you're part of this community, welcome back. It is so awesome to see you over here. My last business, ToutApp, started with a self-service strategy. We now call that product-led growth. And then from the self-service, we actually started to go up market and we moved to a hybrid strategy. And we also started to do a little bit of enterprise. And one of the hardest things I learned, there was this 1 year of hell at ToutApp. One of the hardest things I learned is if you try to move up market too quickly and spin up multiple go-to-market strategies all at once, then your company can likely die of indigestion. It turns out a lot of companies, they don't die because they ran out of money, especially in the early stages. They die because of indigestion. They try to do too many things all at once and they end up neither here and nor there. And so through that year of hell, through my experience in helping companies scale, I learned that there's 3 types of core go-to-market strategies. And founders have to be very cognizant about which one to pick, not because it's the popular one, not because it's a cooler sounding one. They have to pick the right one that matches their product and their market. And when they do that, they're able to scale a lot faster. So in this episode, I'm gonna walk you through my exact framework on what those 3 types of go-to-market strategies are, what are the key factors to consider, and how to pick the right one for your business so you can double down and accelerate your growth. So if you're excited to dig in, go ahead and smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm. And let's first talk about the first key, most major factor. So this is my standard 2x2. We're gonna help you pick the right go-to-market strategy. And the first factor that you actually wanna consider for this is, are you a low ACV type of business or a high ACV type of business? This is one of the simplest things to think about. Why is this important? Well, if I'm gonna spend $50 a month, then I probably don't want to talk to a human being. I'll do a trial and I'll swipe the credit card and maybe I'll have some questions and I'll go to an onboarding, but literally the friction needs to be as low as possible. It also is important that the friction is low as possible because $50 a month is not a lot of money. So you as a company shouldn't be spending too much money on humans to give a white glove experience. And this is at scale, right? So the first thing you want to consider is, do you have a low ACV type of business or a high ACV type of business? And the absolute max that I would think about between the demarcation line of like low is like anything under, say, like 1K per month, right? If you're under 1K per month, I would still consider you in the low to mid-low category. As you start to go above that, then you start to get into, tens of thousands of dollars. That's sort of the mid ACV, right? Or you start getting into hundreds of thousands of dollars and millions of dollars. That's your high ACV. This is the first thing, because the go-to-market strategy that you decide to double down on, the go-to-market strategy that you decide to deploy, that you want to put money onto, has to match this, because certain buyers in each of these segments buy differently. If you're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars, then you're probably gonna wanna talk to a human being. We're probably gonna wanna talk to a human being in your office. They better show up. If you're like 20K, 50K, 100K, now depending on the size of the business you're selling to, this might be a lot of money for them, or it might be a rounding error. So you'll get into this territory where maybe they wanna meet, maybe they don't, but they'll definitely wanna talk to a human being before they sign the contract, they have an MSA in place, and they actually send you the money or swipe a credit card. Now, if you're in the low ACV, then they're like, look, some of them might be super needy and want to talk to a human, but you literally cannot pay your people enough and still make a profit on your unit economics and have human beings as part of the process for this low ACV business, especially as you're starting to scale. So you'll have to start to think about how to actually service these low ACV customers without humans being involved in the process. Are you starting to see why ACV is one of the biggest critical factors on what type of go-to-market strategy you need to pick? And a lot of times, people pick go-to-market strategies that are unmatched from their ACV. And because of that, their unit economics suffer and they're not unit profitable and they're never able to scale that business and hit escape velocity. So that's principle number one and factor number one. What is your ACV? What band do you fall into? All right, so once you have the ACV down, the next thing you want to think about is how complex is your product? So you either have low complexity or you have high complexity. Let me explain. If your product is relatively easy, it integrates with all the key systems that your customers might use, and they can kind of log in and boom, 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 they can connect it, they can OAuth in, and boom, they're in business, all their data is flowing, and everything's integrated, and you have a relatively low complexity product. On the other hand, if you have a product that requires integrations into their internal systems, it requires training of employees en masse, this is a big transformation. It requires auditing, it requires encryption, it requires maybe deployments of like a VPN tunnel so that the data is secure between their on-prem data center to your data. Like that's a high complexity product. And in that kind of scenario, you have a high complexity business and your buyers are gonna want a different type of go-to-market strategy, go-to-market experience. So that's the second factor. The first one is literally money. The second one is essentially product. How complex is your product? Now, there's a nuance here where if your product starts off as super simple and over time can become more complex, then you can start to shift more this way and say, well, we're kind of starting at low complexity and then we move up to high complexity over time. But if you're starting with medium complexity and above right from the beginning and there's a bunch of integrations involved, there's professional services involved, there's training involved, there's onboarding involved, just be honest with yourself because A, that's a good thing because chances are once they do all these things, they can't churn that easily, right? Whereas on this side, they can churn very quickly. But at the same time, it's gonna be a heavier lift for your team to bring on a customer. And by the way, that's okay. Now, the biggest thing to understand with these two factors, let me just pause here for a second before I dig into the 3 go-to-market strategies. Let me just pause here. Like the biggest thing to understand here is you can have different types of go-to-market strategies. None of them are good, none of them are bad. They're all appropriate for the right type of product and market that you're selling into. That's the biggest thing you have to understand because a lot of times people get really caught up on the fads. They get really caught up on like, this is a cool thing to do and every VC loves it. No one cares. What they care about is do you have the right product and the right market and are you servicing them the right way so it's unit economic profitable and you can actually scale growth. That's what matters the most. And your job as CEO is to be honest. To look at, well, are we a low ACV company or are we a high ACV company? Are we a low complexity product or are we a high complexity product? Or maybe we're a medium complexity product. And based on that, you're gonna start to figure out what the best go-to-market strategy is for your business. If you're starting to see the power in this, are you starting to see the power in this? If you are, go to smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm. And can I just get a yes in the comments below? I just love it when you hear from you guys. I respond to every question that you post myself. And every time you hit a yes, I definitely like it and love it. And it just makes all of us feel good. So please hit me with a yes or ask any questions you have around this so far. Also, if you are in the stage where you're scaling your SaaS business and you're looking for a framework to follow to build out your go-to-market strategy, be sure to check out my go-to-market coaching program. I'll tell you more about it at the end of this video. But first, let's go back to the 3 types of go-to-market strategies. And if you haven't hit that like button yet, smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm. All right, so based on these 2 critical factors, this is broadly like it'll get you close enough to like making decisions. Now you're gonna ask yourself, okay, cool. Knowing what we know, how do we actually pick the right go-to-market strategy? And this is where it becomes a lot easier. Like once you make these tougher distinctions. If you have a low complexity product and a low ACV product, this is how we started. We had a $30 a month product. It was fairly easy to implement. Like you just plugged it into your Gmail and plugged it into your email app and you just got it started with Tout App. Then you essentially want a PLG model. It's either PLG and really the OGs of SaaS, we just call it self-service, but you know, you can be cool. So you have a self-service model. The reason you have a self-service model is because it doesn't take a lot for someone to do a trial. It doesn't take a lot for them to get started. It doesn't take a lot for them to swipe their credit card. It's not a huge amount of money. And therefore, you need volume. You need lots and lots of people to put on the top of that funnel. And what that means is that you want them to go through the process, try the product, swipe their credit card, and you want to get that compounding rate going so that more and more people come into the product and spread the product. And that's what product-led growth and self-service is all about. So you want to have a self-service go-to-market strategy in this scenario because, look, first of all, you literally can't afford to put humans in this process. You can't put salespeople. You will lose money because the ACVs are so low. Now, this is where we started. Now, as you're starting to do this, almost every successful SaaS company, if you look at the IPOs that are out there, they all do this, no matter how many, even Atlassian. It's a funny thing with Atlassian. Atlassian actually had tout-app seats, and they always claim to not have salespeople. Well, they did have salespeople, they just called it something else. So what every company does is even if they start with this sort of PLG model, eventually they start to go up market. They start to say, you know what? We don't want to just build a $30 a month product. We actually want to have a $500 a month product. We want to have a higher tier. And because of that, we have to go up market. Or you might be a company and say, look, we literally, like what we do is so valuable, we're not going to charge $30 a month. Like take Marketo, for example. There was no $30 a month product. You couldn't even pay monthly for it. You had to actually, you couldn't even demo it. You literally could not demo Marketo, even to the point where we sold it. You just had to buy it on faith. Maybe you'd get a demo, but that's it. You couldn't try it yourself. And it was sales driven. And so, our average deal sizes were from 40K to 100K in the mid-market. And so you may say like, look, maybe we want to go up market, or we just don't want to deal with this lower in the market because churn is high. It's just a problematic segment of the market, not high quality customers. They're not loyal. They'll move to the other next shiny thing. So you say, you know what? I want to focus on this side. So this over here becomes more of an inside sales motion. The reason we call it inside, it's like such an OG term, but no one's come up with a cool term for it yet. So we still call it inside. It's called inside sales because they sell over Zoom. They sell from the office. They sell over the phone. You don't have to pay for travel. You don't have to pay for buying fancy lunches. You don't have to take them out to golf resorts. You don't have to do any of that stuff you have to do up here. It's inside sales. So you ask for a demo, you enter the sales process, you do a series of calls. Sometimes it's one call, sometimes it's 5 calls, depending on your sales methodology and the complexity of the purchase. And essentially you have armies of people inside the building and they're on the phone selling. And generally speaking, you can get inside sales deals done anywhere from 10K all the way up to, I've seen inside sales deals of 300K being sold without ever visiting the customer. And so you can easily do this. And in some cases, what I've seen is as you're starting to go this way, I've also seen a hybrid where most of the selling is done inside with your reps, but sometimes you'll visit them. Maybe you'll go visit them for the final deal closing. Like before they sign, you just want to meet all the stakeholders, so you'll just visit them once. Or maybe you visit them after they've signed the deal and you're onboarding them. So you go on site and onboard them. We did that. So you can do hybrid sales. The reason this is super important is because this is the most cost efficient. This is a little bit of a sweet spot because the costs of these sales reps are much lower than a fancy enterprise AE. They could be greener, they could be trained a lot faster. You can monitor all their interactions, you can record their sales calls, give them coaching. There's all kinds of technology for that. And you can start to close really large size deals. Now, the big thing with this go-to-market strategy that's a problem is sometimes founders fall into a trap. And the trap is essentially when they're paying an inside sales rep anywhere from 100K to 150K on target earnings, meaning they have a certain base, plus you're giving them commission, and maybe you add on an SDR rep on top of that. You're spending like 200K a year on a rep, and they're closing 10K deals, and they're not closing enough deals to pay for themselves. That's one of the risks of inside sales, where when you actually have a deal size that's small, that really should be more self-service, but you're trying to give them a higher glove service and your unit economics is just not working out, meaning you're spending more on the reps than the reps are generating in terms of revenues because the deal sizes are too small. So that's the one trap to watch out for, where you really have to keep pushing your deal sizes as higher as possible by revamping your pricing strategy. You need to actually revamp your pricing strategy so that you actually have a proper inside sales machine that's actually profitable. Now, the third stage of this is like, look, you're out of the mid ACV, the mid complexity, now you're at high complexity, high ACV. This is multi-million-dollar deal, lots of integrations, there's professional services involved, there's training involved. Customers want you to hold their hand. This is a multi-year engagement. In this case, it becomes an enterprise deal, and that's your true enterprise AE. Now, a lot of times, again, I've seen founders, and I've made this same mistake, where they say, oh, we do enterprise deals. But you're not doing enterprise deals. It's like a $100K deal to a mid-market company or a little enterprise. That's still an inside sales, or at best, a hybrid sales deal. And true enterprise deals are hundreds of thousands of dollars, multi-year deals, and you are actually high complexity. It's almost gonna be impossible for them to rip you out. That's what warrants an enterprise AE going on site, taking them out to lunch or dinner, and making sure you get the deal. And a lot of times what also happens is with these high complexity, high ACV deals, you're kind of not as differentiated, so the relationship matters a lot. Like if you're selling a Salesforce CRM versus an SAP CRM in Germany, like, or a HubSpot CRM, and like, it's like, look, it's all CRM, and all of a sudden the relationship matters a lot, and that's where the enterprise AE needs to get involved, but it needs to be a big enough size deal. So that's what I wanted to walk you through today. And hopefully by thinking about this framework and thinking about some of the pitfalls that you may come across, you start to think about which go-to-market strategy is the right strategy for your business. So to recap, the first is, what's your ACV? And if you want to drive your ACV up, you should rethink your pricing strategy. This is something we work on with founders inside of our go-to-market program. If you have a low complexity versus a high complexity, that's the other factor to think about. And based on that, you'll figure out if you're sufficient for a PLG type model, in which case you have to spend a lot of money on marketing and get as many people as possible and keep the complexity of the product low. Or you need to invest in an inside sales model if your ACVs are a little bit higher and the complexity of the product is a bit higher, and you want to actually get the fast clip going. You want inside salespeople to accelerate the process and build the trust. If the deal sizes are getting bigger and the complexity is getting a little bit bigger, but not quite enterprise level, then you can do a hybrid inside sales model. And then from there, you can go to enterprise AE model. Those are the key ways you can actually choose a different type of go-to-market motion. And when you do that, you'll be able to do all the other key pieces in the right way. The biggest mistake you can make is try to spin up. If you're sub 10 million ARR, sub 20 million ARR, the biggest mistake you can make is try to spin this up and this up and this up and say, well, we have some inside reps, we have some SDRs, we have 2 corporate reps, we have a PLG model. I tried that 1 year. It was a terrible idea. So don't do that. Although when you raise fresh venture capital, it can be very tempting to say, oh, let's spin these up, spin up more bets. This is just one of those things where you got to pick one go-to-market motion, double down on it, really make it work, really strengthen it, take a long view. Once that's strengthened, then you can kind of expand from there. And that's the power of knowing how to make these choices using these 2 key factors. So that's what I had for you today. That's how you pick the right go-to-market strategy based on the ACV you have and the complexity of the product you have. Now, if you are in this stage where you're building out your go-to-market strategy and you're looking to scale faster, this is exactly why I created my SaaS go-to-market coaching program. It's a framework that you can follow to actually answer some tough questions around, well, what should our pricing strategy be? Which go-to-market strategy and motion should we do? What channel should we go after? What's our ideal customer profile? What's our strategic narrative and our differentiated messaging? All these key things, we actually give you a framework to follow. We teach you how to flesh these things out so you actually have a scalable go-to-market strategy so you can actually scale your growth. If you're interested in the go-to-market program, we do have some spots available. So go ahead and go to tkcater.com/GTM. tkcater.com/GTM. Over there, you'll learn all the details about the program. At the bottom of it, you can actually apply to join. It's super easy. You just put in your email, answer a couple of questions. We'll review it on our side and make sure that you're a good fit and we can actually help you. If we feel that way, then we'll get on a call. We'll go through all the details. We'll answer any questions, and then we're off to the races to actually building out your scalable go-to-market strategy to scale your SaaS business faster. So go to tkcater.com/GTM so that you can go deeper and actually follow a framework to flesh all these key pieces out. Lastly, if you got value from this video, go ahead and smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm. It loves it when you do that. Also, if you haven't subscribed already, be sure to hit the subscribe button and that bell icon because I drop 2 to 3 episodes every week with actionable strategies like this to grow your SaaS business faster from actual experience in scaling SaaS businesses, growing SaaS businesses, raising venture capital, exiting SaaS businesses. So that's why I do this, to serve as many founders as possible. And also, if you have a fellow founder, if you have a team member, if you're part of a Slack group and you feel like the other founders can get value from this video, please share it with them. It'll mean the world to us. We want to help as many SaaS businesses and SaaS founders as possible. And lastly, remember, everyone needs a strategy for their life and their business. When you are with us, yours is going to be unstoppable. I'm TK. I'll see you in the next episode. so what are we talking about? Let's make sure this microphone's working. Is it working? Yeah, I think we got it. Sorry, I don't know why it was bothering me.